So we're going to begin with part 2 now of the new evangelization. And this is going to be specifically, so we talked about evangelization. What is evangelization? It's a proclamation of the gospel and the witness of life in words. Well, we keep hearing the phrase, what is a new evangelization? So what's the difference between evangelization and the new evangelization? This term has been coined and books have been written and videos have been made all about the re-evangelization of the culture today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the new evangelization and then how we implement the new evangelization that we're called to implement today. You see up here in our PowerPoint presentation this small group of Catholics that got together from people on the street and started working in the local parish and doing a small group together. And we found that in the new evangelization, relationships are key. All the excuses and all the fears and all the reasons people have that they don't believe in the gospel, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in the Christian God, they're Catholic but they don't see any reason to practice, whatever it is, oftentimes boils down to hurt and pain in a particular relationship more often than it does simply an intellectual argument. I usually find that intellectual arguments are simply walls and defenses that people put up to guard their own hearts from being transformed and changed by the true gospel. So what we decided to do as we were evangelizing and as people were showing interest in the gospel is that we needed to have a small group program. And so my team got together at a restaurant, and this is another example of divine providence working in our everyday lives. Like, all right, we have a project we want to do on small groups. And so in Michigan, we're meeting at this restaurant that we're all halfway in between from, like most of us had to drive an hour to get there. And when we show up at the restaurant, one of our friends, one of our evangelists, his name is Bob, isn't there. It's like noon. And we call him up on the phone. Hey, Bob, are you going to be here soon? I was in bed sleeping. I'm sorry. Bob, it's noon. Get out of bed. Like, all right, we're going to come closer to you. And so we end up at a second restaurant. And by this time, we're getting a little tired. And one of our team members says, I really don't want to eat here. I don't like this restaurant. I have allergies. And we're like, all right, so we go to a third restaurant. By the time, I'm getting a little agitated now, but we're there, we're sitting down, and we're talking about having small groups as part of the new evangelization. We have some papers out, and we order our meal, and the waitress comes back, and she says, oh, I see you guys are doing Jesus stuff. Yeah, we're doing Jesus stuff. And the waitress looks at us, and she's like, I've always wondered about Jesus, and I hope I'm not imposing, but would you have a few minutes to tell me about him? Yeah. Have a seat. How much time you got? And so we explain the gospel to her. She's like, this is great. I've got to tell you, I'm really lonely. I don't really have any friends. I wish there was a place I could just go to be part of a small group. All right, God, we get it. God had, moved us all around and changed our day, and we're a little frustrated, a little annoyed for his specific purpose. He wanted us that day in that restaurant for that person, that waitress that we were able to make a contact with and invite her into the church and just befriend her and love her and share with her the love of Jesus. That happened right at the beginning of the founding of St. Paul Street Evangelization too. Our founder, Steve, he was in a restaurant and he gave his waitress a miraculous medal and just said, hey, this is a gift for you. Now, it's not that hard to do. We love giving out miraculous medals and people love receiving them. It's a tangible reminder of God's love for us. Even if they walk away and they don't remember the conversation, they've got that miraculous medal. And the waitress gets to talking to him and she's like, there's something I really don't understand about the church. I don't understand the church's teaching on abortion. Could you explain that to me? And so Steve took the time to explain to her what the church teaches and why. And that was kind of it. He saw her again later on. He went back to the same restaurant and she recognized him. What are the chances? And she went up to him and she said, hey, God put you there for me today because I have to tell you, I found out that I was pregnant and I was going to have an abortion. But after our talk, I decided to keep the baby. And, you could see she was visibly pregnant at that point, just filled with joy. Just so happy that someone intervened in her life and shared the truth with her. And now she had this little baby to take care of. And Steve said, well, we're going to get the baby baptized now, right? One step at a time, Steve. But blessed be God. A simple 2-minute conversation led to a relationship, which led to an invitation, which led to somebody's life being changed forever. So we have this fear of sharing our faith. And I run into this everywhere I go. We have a desire to evangelize, but we have the fear of evangelization. If only I could get past that fear, I would evangelize. Now, when I first started doing street evangelization, I have to tell you, I was out there. I had my rosaries. I was with my team. People were walking by, just nervous as ever, just afraid. Like, not that one. No, not him. He's going to hell anyway, just, what, and you're afraid to actually say, hey, would you like a free rosary, or how's it going today, or my name is Adam, because we have this, we have this culture that says our faith is private, and Pope Benedict XVI identifies in that, we're being told this lie, our faith is private and it's not to permeate the public sphere. And so we're afraid of coming across as preachy. We're afraid if we talk to somebody about our faith that they're going to just go, oh, I don't want to hear that. Oh, you're one of those Christians. Don't shove your teachings down my throat. Everybody's free to believe whatever it is they want to believe. Even people who have labeled themselves as atheists, have rejected the gospel, have rejected belief in God. Don't tell me about that. What we find is you cannot accept a person simply for their label. And you cannot assume the person you see is going to reject the gospel. Now, the gentleman we met in the mall, this was my small-mindedness. I thought, he's the one that's just going to, punch us in the face. And he's the one that accepted the gospel. And so we have to learn to be fearless. Yes, it's a legitimate fear. If we go out there and we get on a soapbox and we start, just preaching at people. Preaching is for the masses, right? Preaching does not preach necessarily to the heart of one specific person one-on-one, but it's meant to reach the hearts of a lot of people. And so if we, in a personal conversation, a one-on-one conversation, come across as simply preaching, that'll turn people away. Instead, what we need to be aware of and what we need to do through Christian listening is speak to the heart of a person. And I think that's what all of us want to learn how to do. How do I open up a conversation, and how do I speak to the very heart of a person so that they're able to receive the gospel? Because if I was confident that was going to happen, I would be more bold in my evangelization. At least that's how I felt. If I was confident that the Holy Spirit was telling me to talk to this person, and that they would be receptive to what I had to say into this relationship, well, then I'd be more willing to get that relationship going, to start talking to them and listening to their story. So, in the new evangelization, it is a desire to speak to the heart. It's a desire to listen and befriend people. It's a desire for human connection. This waitress that we met at the restaurant, she wanted to have a connection with other people. Polls and research polls show that, what would cause you to come to church, right? It's not a billboard. It's not a radio ad. It's not reading a piece of literature or a book that ends up at the top of the list. Those can all be important paths to evangelization, to a relationship with God, but they're not really at the top of the list. At the top of the list is I would show up to a church. I would go there if I knew there were people that would love me and teach me life lessons. We have so much homelessness and fatherlessness and motherlessness and broken families today that people aren't simply learning how to live. They're not connecting with other human beings. And as we offer that connection, and as we're willing to listen and we're willing to receive people, we say non-judgmentally, just love them right where they're at in order to, show them the love of Jesus, they open up their hearts to us. I find that people on the street are willing to talk to us even about some of the most painful things going on in their life because they're tired of the pain. I'm a stranger to them, or they've just met me and we're just connecting. We don't necessarily have a long-term intimate relationship, and they're willing to pour out their hearts. Now, when I was in high school, I became a Baptist. In fact, I became a Baptist that was an anti-Catholic. I tried to go out and save Catholics and get them to a Bible-believing church. Little did I know. Look where I am now. It was the connections and the friendship and the fruits of meeting other Catholics who just loved me, whether or not I was going to convert, that caused me to come into the church. And that's something that we have to think about today. So the new evangelization is a desire to deepen our faith and our confidence in the gospel, to get over the fear we have to evangelize so that others will have this personal encounter with Jesus that Pope Benedict XVI says is our great task in the work of evangelization today. It's this lens through which people encounter the church. And so when we're talking about evangelization, everyone expects, we're just talking about preaching the gospel, steps A, B, C, and D. I go out there. Somebody asked me once, well, is evangelization where you go and tap someone on the shoulder in the grocery store and say, hey, can I read you the Nicene Creed? I said, this is really good for a list of what not to do. Like, let's write that up on the board. No, it's the act first of listening to a person, getting to know them a little bit. This can be done in a 2-minute conversation. Hey, how's it going? Would you like a free rosary? That's great. Do you go to church? Just getting to know who they are. Can I tell you why I choose to be a Christian? And breaking the ice. Because when we look at it, people say that they don't go to church because of schedules or a lack of time, family responsibilities that they have, health problems or disabilities, conflicts with work, missing Mass is not a sin, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Every time someone says that, I want to say, so is the devil. Be more specific. But none of these are objections that we can't get over. Now, before I was raised in the Lutheran Church, I was baptized Catholic, I was raised in the Lutheran Church, I became Baptist in high school because after school Bible study had pizza. Turn down pizza, right? And then I became Catholic. When it comes time for testimony, I'll share the full story with you in our training. But for now, after I became Catholic, I went out to lunch with my mom, who came from a Catholic family. She was the youngest, and I was the baby of the baby. And most of her family left the church and were no longer practicing, had gone on to become nothing, or had gone on to other religions, other denominations. My mom became a Lutheran because it seemed to be close enough. And my dad was a Lutheran. And so after I became Catholic, I took her out to lunch with my new priest of my new parish in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Just a friendly, sit down, get to know you lunch. And he said, well, Donna, why aren't you Catholic anymore? What happened? It's okay to ask questions like those. People are willing to share their stories. They want to talk. They want to share their story. And she explained that after my grandfather had died, he spent years cleaning out serving and cleaning the church. And when he died, the priest did not do his Mass of Christian burial because the priest wasn't there. He wasn't in the state. He was away. And so he simply wasn't able to. It wasn't for a lack of love or a desire. But that upset the family, and it gave them what they wanted as a reason to leave the church. And so the priest looked at her and said, well, that's stupid. No. He looked at her and said, I am so sorry. On behalf of the church, please accept my apology. I'm sorry. And that was it. It was just friendly conversation after that, just making a human connection. And so that was that. The lunch went on and was over and everything. And she called me up after that. She said, well, that apology was very helpful. And so I went back and I talked to Father Don again. Like, that's great. What happened? Like, well, I can't tell you that. Well, what do you mean? She's like, well, it was something like this. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been decades since my last confession. All it took was an apology. Making a human connection, establishing a relationship, listening to somebody's story, and offering an apology. I was at an evangelization event. We were at like a farmer's market, and a woman approached me and said, you want to know why I'm no longer Catholic? I'm no longer Catholic because my parish priest came up to me and said, I am going to double your child's tuition because you don't give enough in the collection plate. And I left the church. And so in that moment, we could minister to her, whether that's true or not, however she interpreted it. If it is true, I mean, that's horrible. And just say, I'm very sorry that happened to you. On behalf of the church, please accept our apology. It's all over the country. Like here in St. Louis, we can go out to the Arch. Great opportunity to go evangelize. That's where our team goes. Share the faith with other people. Allow them to approach us with whatever their stories are, whatever's, breaking their heart, wherever they feel hopeless. Offer them the hope of the gospel and begin simply by listening to them. These problems are not problems that we can't overcome. They're actually really low-hanging fruit. They're actually really simple to get past and help people embrace the gospel. So finally, and then we're going to have an opportunity to talk in small groups. Reasons people say they don't go to church generally fall into three categories. Secularization. Faith is a private matter, and the freedom of religion does not exceed to the public sphere. Faith is not to permeate every part of our life. Materialism. Why do we need God when we have political power, community prestige, sports, and stuff? Whatever we make out to be the God of our life over the one true God becomes. There's a website, Black Friday Death Count. When it gets to that point where we're willing to kill each other over, saving $20 on a TV, something has gone really wrong in society. We're given over to materialism, individualism. No one can tell me what to do. Why would I join an organization that told me why I had to have these specific beliefs? Now, there are answers to all of these, and what I want you to begin thinking about is who are the people I want to evangelize? My fallen away children, my fallen away parents, my friends, my co-workers. Maybe your work is a hostile work environment to faith and you feel like you're not allowed to share your faith, or you're under pressure to accept the corporate culture, which is very anti-Christian. Maybe it's friends in school. Maybe you're a teacher and you want to share your faith with your students. As we get into an opportunity to share and discuss with one another, I would like you, what we're first of all going to do, just get to know one another, and I'd like you to begin discussing who is it that I want to evangelize and what's keeping me from evangelizing them, because I want to spend the rest of this conference talking together about how we can overcome these obstacles that traditionally, for years, maybe for decades, have kept us from sharing the gospel. Whether it's that poor woman's husband who kept coming to Mass and no one ever invited him, or whether it's more complicated than that. There are answers and there are ways we can evangelize. Yes, a person is always free to say no, but God does want to bless our efforts and be fruitful in the work of evangelization. So we have to balance that human freedom. Each individual has the ability to say no, with the Holy Spirit drawing people to himself and to God and to the sacraments. And people will say yes as well to the gospel. So, I think it's most important with St. Paul Street Evangelization that in all of our evangelization efforts that we consider first of all then, how do we simply get to know people? I told you at the beginning of this training that I'm naturally an introvert. I was at Father Larry Richard's parish, and if you know Father Larry, he's a total polar opposite of introvert. He teaches at a lot of men's conferences and women's conferences and goes around the country and speaks. And he's just one of those, very dynamic speakers, right? And I was speaking in his parish, and he was in the back watching me talk about pressure. And I'm like, now I got to tell you, everybody, I'm an introvert. And he's like, yes, he is. So if I'm an introvert and I'm out there evangelizing, I simply want an easy way to get to know people. I'm on the bus or airplane, and it used to be that I'd go out and I would talk to somebody. I'd get on a long flight or something and sit next to someone and say, okay, I've got to evangelize. And so I'd go, hey, how's it going? Oh, all right. So what's your name? Jim. What's yours? Oh, Adam. How's the weather? Well, we're 30,000 feet up, so it's probably pretty cold out there. It's like, what do I do? Like, how do I get into these conversations? I just get, tongue-tied and everything. So I want to give you a little trick that I've learned if I'm going to have an opportunity to sit down with someone I don't know and have a conversation with them. It's up to you. Keep your eyes open or closed, but I'm going to give you kind of a mental image. I know sometimes I hear people say, close your eyes, and I'm like, nope. So you don't have to close your eyes. But if you'd like to, it'll give you a better sense of this mental image. A little bit of a trick to get to know people here. So imagine it's a nice, sunny, warm day, and you're walking outside, taking a walk in the neighborhood. You see this yellow 2-story house. You see a little boy waving his hands out of the house, like his whole torso is just sticking out of the house, and he's frantically trying to get your attention. And so you stop and you kind of wave at him and look curiously about what's going on here. And he picks up all these paper airplanes and starts chucking these paper airplanes out of the window. And they're flying everywhere, landing all over the yard. And you're kind of wondering now where mom and dad are. Like, what? You don't want them to fall out of the window. What's going on here? So you look up to the front door. You're looking around to see if you can find mom and dad. And you see in the walkway a hobby horse. If you don't know what a hobby horse is, it's an old-style wooden horse. It's just rocking back and forth in the middle of the walkway. Weirdest thing you've ever seen. And you don't see mom and dad, and you're looking around, and you look up on the chimney, and you see in the chimney a gigantic baseball glove covering the chimney. So you imagine, where you'd stick your hand in a baseball glove. That's where the chimney's going into the baseball glove, and it's just sitting there. And cradled in the baseball glove is a pickaxe. It's the oddest thing you've ever seen. Right? If you did close your eyes, you're welcome to open them. This is a great way just to ask questions, find common ground, hit it off with someone, talk about their life, get to know them. The neighborhood, where are you from? So often when I get on an airplane, so are you coming or going? Oh yeah, where are you going? Oh man, all right, you're headed to Michigan. Well, if you could go anywhere, where would you go? Because I got to tell you, I'd head straight for Hawaii or Alaska. It depends on the time of the year. Summer, I'd head to Alaska. Winter, I'm headed to Hawaii. Oh, yeah, I'd go to Hawaii too. Oh, great. So, where are you from? Where are you going? The little boy, do you have any family? Or if they're younger, if you're on a college campus, do you have any siblings? What brought you to this college? The house, where are you from? The hobby horse, what do you like to do? And you don't have to quiz any one person. You just talk to them until you find common ground and start up a conversation. Don't necessarily have to get through every question. So the hobby horse, what do you like to do for fun? We were at a restaurant this week evangelizing a young man, and he was really into hunting. He lives out, in Wyoming, and he loves to hunt. And so we found common ground there, talking about different types of guns and hunting and going out and how do you do that kind of thing. It's a great way just to get to know him. You can find common ground by asking about sports. So we're here in St. Louis. What's our team? The Cardinals? All right. You talk about sports. You can talk about what are you going to do for a living? When I'm on a college campus, a pickaxe. What do you want to do for a living? What's your major? We met a young man who was a philosophy student. Like, oh, that's great. Who's your favorite philosopher? And he said, oh, Kierkegaard. Oh, awesome. We know a few things about Kierkegaard. And he kept coming back to our evangelization table just to have these conversations about philosophy. And we had members of our team who were able to engage him and talk about philosophy. That's where we found common ground with him. And that's where we were able to build on that relationship. So we're going to begin a small group exercise talking about relationships. First of all, feel free to mix up. But whatever group you get into, whatever small group you get into, I'd like you to stay in that small group because we're going to build on each one of these activities as we move throughout the duration of this basic evangelization training. So if you're in a group where you know everyone, you came with them, please consider getting into a small group with people that you don't know. The first thing I'd like you to do, you can use those question stack questions that I just gave you, those ideas to get to know one another. Make sure everybody has an opportunity to talk. Everybody has an opportunity to introduce themselves and see if you can find one thing in common with everybody at your table. I bet you can do it. The second thing, so introduce yourselves, that I'd like you to talk about is who is on my heart that I want to evangelize. You don't have to solve all the problems right now in this small group and figure out how you're going to evangelize them, but just share that story. This is my coworkers, my family, my students. These are the people I desire to evangelize in my life. I want to go out to the street to evangelize. I want to evangelize in the parish. Just start to get that conversation going. It might be, well, I'm terrified to evangelize, but I know I'm supposed to, so I'm here. That's a perfectly honest thing to say. Or, well, mom and dad dragged me, or my spouse dragged me here. Whatever it is that you want to share. So we're going to go ahead and take the next, 20 minutes or so to get into a small group and to talk. Again, get to know one another. Let's start talking about who it is that we would like to evangelize. And then after that, we'll continue on in our basic evangelization training. Thank you.